Today we're talking about the TOK presentation, which is 25% of your overall TOK grade. Okay, it is the IA component. It is the only component that we get to score. Your TOK essay goes out 75%. You have no control over that. So you want to get all the possible points that you can get on the TOK presentation. Okay, it is much more complex than any presentation you've ever done. In the sense that it requires several different components to be done in order to get your full points. So what I want to start with is looking at the rubric, okay? Because that is really where we want to begin in terms of the requirements. This is what I will grade you on. It is a holistic rubric. It is a 1 to 10, okay? Like all rubrics, you want to look at the top band to see what is being asked of you to get up to this level, okay? So in order to do this correctly, you have to have all of these things done. Now, it doesn't look like a lot, but in order to do all of this in a 10-minute period is not that easy, okay? So let's take a look. First of all, we have a well-formulated knowledge question, okay? So that is key. In the TOK essay, it's not as big of a deal. It can be implied. It doesn't even have to be there. In the TOK presentation, it has to be there. Now, when it says is focused on a well-formulated knowledge question, okay? Look at the second band. It also says the presentation is focused on a knowledge question. Get down to level 3, the presentation identifies a knowledge question. So that word means that you are throughout. Knowledge question focused throughout. Presentation. This is where most people don't get to the top level. They talk about the knowledge question at the beginning, and then they go on and do their other stuff, and they forget to go back to the knowledge question. Okay, this is the biggest mistake that people make. Okay, because again, you're trying to do all these things at once, but what you don't realize is that you have to do them, you have to do all of them, but you have to consistently do all of them all of the time. Okay, so it's not like, okay, I did my knowledge question, I'm done. Now I do my real life situation, I'm done. Now I do my arguments, I'm done. No, it's all done at the same time. So you start with the knowledge question, and then you move into the real life situation, and then you connect the real life situation back to the knowledge question. Then you go from the real life situation on into your different arguments, and then you connect those arguments to the real life situation and to the knowledge question. Okay? So this focused, what that means is that you have gone throughout the presentation. It's hard to do, okay? It requires a lot of planning. It requires a good PowerPoint or Prezi presentation. One tip that I have always given out is have the knowledge question somehow present in all the slides. You could make a custom background where you actually have the knowledge question appear as part of the background on every slide. That will remind you that you should always be referencing back to it. Okay, if you do a little bit of planning ahead, it's a lot easier. Okay, because if not, you get caught up and you get into your real life situation, you get into your arguments, and you just forget. And I would say that is the biggest thing that brings people down from the top band. Okay, so next, clearly connected. Okay, that also goes into what I'm saying. Clearly connected versus connected versus has some connection. What clearly connected means is that it is consistently clearly connected to real life situation. All right? It has to be, you have to really show how the knowledge question connects to what you're talking about. You can't just say it and then say your real life situation and say, see how they're similar? You have to explain it to me. Okay, you have to go through your knowledge question and say, okay, so this part connects to this part of our knowledge question this way. All right? So it's not just listed. Clearly connected to a specified real-life situation. Specified real-life situation happens through the top 3 bands, okay? That's not anything we want to worry about too much, okay? Next is the knowledge question is effectively explored. KQ, effectively explored. Again, this goes back to constantly connecting your points to the knowledge question. The TOK presentation is all about the knowledge question. Okay? Effectively explored. Using convincing arguments. That word convincing is key. Okay? Notice here, if you don't have convincing arguments, you drop down because you just have clear arguments. What's the difference between a clear argument and a convincing argument? Well, a clear argument is easy to understand. Oh, okay, I get what you're saying. A convincing argument is, I get what you're saying, and I think I'm going to change my mind now that you have explained it in the way that you have explained it. Okay? So, convincing is the key. How do you get to be convincing? Your support. Okay? Your data, your studies, your evidence. That's what makes it convincing. Okay? It's like in the TOK presentation is very similar to making a case in a court of law. You have evidence, you make your case, you have arguments that you present, you consider counter-arguments, you are aware of all possible objections, and by doing all of that, you are able to convince the jury of your position. So convincing arguments is key. If they're clear, if you haven't changed my mind in any way by the end of the presentation, then you cannot get to the 9 or the 10 level. Okay? I need to at some point say to myself, okay, what they're saying not only makes sense, but it's making me think about this in a different way. And that's the real challenge. Okay? Next, we have investigation of different perspectives. The difference here is investigation, acknowledgement. Okay? Investigation means you've been thorough. Acknowledgement means you've just sort of presented them and shown awareness. All right? So after convincing arguments, and I'm going to go ahead and say this. All right? If you notice on the rubric, the meat of the rubric is right here. Okay? And I don't think that that's necessarily a coincidence when you talk about the TOK presentation diagram, which goes like this. Real life situation, knowledge question, investigation, application. This is where most of your money is made. Okay? These two parts go pretty quickly. You spend a lot of time here, and then you wrap things up at the end. It's very similar to the percentage layout of this, right? Knowledge question, real life situation take up a big chunk right up here, almost like this whole half. Okay, but they happen very quickly. And I'm going to show you some time frames about how long you should spend on them. But this part right here is the meat. Okay? So the two really key parts here are convincing arguments and investigation of perspectives. All right, that's where you are going to have to succeed to do this well. Okay? Once you get done with that, you can wrap it up with sort of the icing on the cake, which is that outcomes are significant to others. So outcomes, another word for that is conclusions. outcomes equal conclusions applied to other real life situations. That's right up here. Okay? So that's a breakdown of the rubric, and that's all that you have to do. Okay? It seems simple. It's just a very short statement, basically a paragraph, but it's a lot to get done in 10 minutes. Remember, anything over 10 minutes is not counted in the presentation. Okay? Now, an important note about this outcome of the analysis shown to be significant to the real life situation and others. Okay? Notice, and to others. That isn't here. Okay? So you cannot get a 9 or a 10 if you don't apply the real life situation outcomes to 2 other real life situations. This happens at the end of the presentation. So what happens a lot is that people will get to the end, they will run out of time, and they haven't gotten to the 2 other real life situations, and they could have had an amazing presentation, and they cannot get higher than an 8 because they ran out of time. Yeah?
So does each person have to speak 10 minutes, or is just 10 minutes for the entire?
All right, so does each person have to speak 10 minutes? There is a maximum of 10 per person. Okay, not a minimum, a maximum. Okay, so it's per person, right? So 3 people, 30 minutes. All right? So you could conceivably, for example, have somebody that speaks for 12 minutes, another speaks for 8, and another speaks for 6. Everybody still gets the same grade in the presentation. Okay? So, not ideal, because everybody should be pulling their own weight, but technically that's how it works. It's not like, Anna went 11 minutes, so I'm not going to count what she said. If you're 3 people or 2 people, you have 20 minutes for both of you to get everything done. Okay? It's considered that you have put a significant amount of work on this outside of the 10 minutes. So just because you didn't speak enough during the 10 minutes, one person is not penalized. The group gets the same grade. Okay? All right, so that's a quick look at the rubric. Okay? That is applied to the TOK diagram, okay, which I've given you a preview of here. And this is the process for going through this, okay? And I hope that the connection I made between sort of the breakup of the first rubric band and the actual diagram is somewhat helpful. So I'm going to sort of duplicate this. This is online. I'm going to duplicate it a little bit here, okay? You start with your real life situation. By the way, this is not what I have made up. This comes from... I did have it here. This comes from IB. Okay? When you go to a training on TOK, this is what they teach you, how to do this. Okay? So there it is, real life situation, extraction, knowledge question recognized, progression, knowledge question developed, bring it up back into the real world, apply it to 2 other real life situations, and your final application. What I have done with my diagram is tried to explain what they mean by this. Okay? So, in my diagram, it's pretty similar, but you got your real life situation up here. You extract the knowledge question. Okay? So, again, I'm going to kind of give you a breakdown of time frames here. Okay? So, if you've got your knowledge question here, okay, how long does it take to state a knowledge question? 10 seconds? All right? So, your knowledge question and the connection to it should last at the most 1 to 2 minutes. Okay? Sorry. This is not knowledge question. This is real life situation. This is knowledge question. Okay? So this process here of moving from your real life situation into your knowledge question should take about 2 to 4 minutes at the most. Okay? Now, a word on real life situations. People get stuck on complicated real life situations explaining the entire real life situation. It takes them 4 minutes to explain a real life situation. Don't get stuck on that. Okay? Your real life situation should be stated. Here's what it is. Here's when it happened. Here was the major components, people involved. Now let's move on to the knowledge question. The key word with the knowledge question is decontextualized, which is a nice big word for just saying that it can be applied to anything. Decontextualized, right? Taken out of its context and applied to other things. We're going to go into a separate lesson on knowledge questions because we're going to spend a little time on that next class. But we've already talked about the 4 requirements for a knowledge question. Okay? And that's really key here. Decontextualized. All right? Now, so at this point, you are maybe, I'm going to use a 10-minute presentation as an example here. Okay? Obviously, these can be ramped up for others. But even if you're in a 3-person group, a 30-minute presentation, you still don't want to spend more than like 4 or 5 minutes on this part of it. Okay? When you move into this section, again, this is where you have the meat. Okay? You're going to develop it. All right? Now, this is your answer to the knowledge question. You are attempting to answer it. And you are answering it by making anywhere from 2 to 4 claims about the knowledge question. Okay? If you're a 1-person group, you want at least 2 claims. If you're a 3-person group, I would do 3 claims. You could do 4. You probably aren't going to have enough time. Okay? So my best suggestion is 2 to 3 claims, even though I have 2 to 4 there. All right? You're allowed to do 4. Definitely wouldn't have time to do 5. All right? The key thing is to look at all the things you have to do with that claim. All right? You have to state your claim and explain it. State and explain your claim. All right? And it's just a claim about knowledge. Again, let's go back to the real life situation. I probably didn't mention this enough right now, but the real life situation needs to be something that is debatable. Okay? I think I used before the example of the Patriots winning the Super Bowl. Patriots win the Super Bowl, not a big deal. Not much there. Okay? But Deflategate, where there was a controversy and ethical implications, that has some stuff you could get arguments on both sides about. You want a real life situation that has potential for argument on both sides. All right, back to this. State and explain your claim. The real strong part is right now, okay? Then support your claim. The support is key, okay? I used to have the word examples there. I took that out because what people were doing is they were giving me additional real-life situations in support of their claim. Okay? I don't want that. I want data, studies, surveys, articles, any of that. Not all of that. Okay? So you might say to yourself, well, a study is like another real-life situation. Yes, in a sense, but you're not going into detail on it. But you've got a study that somehow applies to the claim that you're making. Okay? Can you do surveys on your own? Yes. Okay? Depending on the subject matter, you could actually go out and take a survey of other students and find out what their opinions are. It's not great. We'd like to have published surveys that have been really applied in a much bigger sense. but certain subjects may lend themselves to that. Okay? Responses to artistic pieces, for example. Real life situations that have to do with contemporary events, like current political climate, or major issues like that students would have a relevant voice on, like school shootings, things like that. That would be advisable to do some sort of interaction with others. Those are really the only cases. All right, and then, or articles, and this, just be careful. It just needs to be something that you've shown you've done research on this. All right, once you have given your support, now you want to look at potential counterclaims. Remember the rubric, okay? You've looked at other perspectives. Support other perspectives. Again, the key word here was investigation. Okay? The bad word was acknowledgement. Okay? Think of it like police. A crime happens. You don't want the police to just acknowledge the crime. You want them to investigate it. Okay? So we don't want you to just acknowledge that there are other ways to look at this. We want you to actually spend time investigating. Okay? And then, of course, link to knowledge question, which is what most people forget because they get caught up in here. All right? So if you are anywhere from 1 to 2 minutes on these, then this is probably going to take you anywhere from 6 to 7 minutes per claim. Okay, per claim. So this is where most of the presentation happens. All right, so let's take an example of a 30-minute presentation. All right, and it might break up like this. Let's say in green, for example, a 30-minute presentation. Let's say we talked about this for 1 minute. The connection took us maybe 2 minutes. We're 3 people, so we went about, let's say, 19 minutes on this. All right, so now we're up to 22 minutes. That means we have 8 minutes left to wrap this thing up in the last section. Okay? And that's a good time frame, right? This is where most of it is happening. I guess if I could draw it like like one of those charts that size is sort of depicted by shapes, it would sort of look like this. Maybe here and here. Might look like that. Because this is where you're spending most of your time. Little time, little time. Connected back always. Okay? Connected back always. Alright, so we're almost done with this. Once we have finished our claims, here's the real key. People start to lose this at this point. They've done a lot of work. You have to apply each claim to at least 2 more real-life situations. What a lot of people do is they're like, all right, these are my claims, and here's 2 other similar real-life situations. And that's it. It's not just to be like, oh, by the way, here are 2 other things that are like this. You have to apply the claims. Okay? So, apply claims. Real life situation 2 and 3. Because real life situation 1 is the main one. Alright? So this would probably take you, again, anywhere from, now this is much more brief. Okay? You don't have to spend time doing counter examples and different things like that. But it should probably take you anywhere from 2 to 4 minutes to get this done. Okay? Once you've done that, now you finish up by apply conclusions to all of them. All right, you've come full circle at this point. You've done this entire investigation. Now you've said, here are my conclusions. Okay, remember, the rubric said outcomes. So if you don't give me a conclusion, you have not looked at outcomes. Okay, yeah?
Do you need counterclaims for real life situations 2 and 3?
Do you need counterclaims for real life situations 2 and 3? Not really, because you've already dealt with the counterclaims here. Okay? Now you could mention them, and you could say, for example, real life situation 2 may be one in which the other perspective was valid. Okay? Remember, you don't necessarily have to prove that you are right in every case. That's not what TOK is about. TOK is much more about showing that you are aware that certain things apply in some cases and others apply in other cases. All right? Now, one thing that we haven't mentioned in this whole thing has been areas of knowledge and ways of knowing. Okay? That should be infused throughout the presentation. Okay? So now you don't have to say, my area of knowledge that I'm dealing with is this. Okay? But you should show awareness that if you are talking about a psychological study, that it exists within the human sciences. And you should be talking about emotion and imagination and intuition and memory and sense perception. Those things. It should be infused throughout. If you never mention an area of knowledge or a way of knowing, you probably didn't explore this through the lens of TOK. All right? It's possible to do. Now, granted, the rubric doesn't say anything about areas of knowledge or ways of knowing. Okay? So it is possible to do this and get a perfect score without ever explicitly mentioning areas of knowledge or ways of knowing. But it's difficult. I mean, you're living in the TOK world. You should be referencing TOK ideas and concepts. Okay? So, those are the basics of how you do the presentation. So I want you to just kind of take a step back for a moment and try to imagine what a good presentation would look like. Right? A good presentation is thorough, it's convincing, it's consistent, it's constantly referencing back to real-life situations and knowledge questions. And then it's coming to interesting conclusions at the end. This cannot be done overnight. You have to spend time working on this. That's why you're going to have time in class to work on this. Okay? That's why it's not like normal group projects. You can't just assign one person to do this and the other person to do that. You guys have to work together as a group and say, okay, well, what do you think about this? All right, well, how about this? There has to be an interaction. It's not like other group projects where you can just assign some work to this person and have them go through it. Okay? Whatever presentation you use, PowerPoint or page, slides, which I don't recommend, or Prezi, it needs to be planned out very nicely from the beginning and should have some kind of consistency throughout with the knowledge question and the real life situation. Again, the biggest mistake people make is they say, here's my knowledge question, here's my real life situation, here's our claim. And I talk about my claim, and I do my support, and this, and that. Here's my other perspectives. Here's our other claim. Talk about my support. Now we're about, 15 minutes into a presentation of 3 people, and we haven't talked about the real-life situation in over 10 minutes. Okay? This entire area, right here, is all about real-life situation 1. Even when you're talking about your claims, you are talking about it in the scope of real-life situation 1. This is why this is difficult to do. Because there are so many things to do that you forget to go back. Okay? It's only the people that really prepare that will get a 9 or a 10 on this presentation. Okay, you have to prepare ahead of time a lot. Okay? All right, that's that in terms of how to do it. Okay? The only other thing I'm going to tell you right now is really key, is a good old IB standby, which is another acronym, a PPD. Okay? The PPD is the presentation planning document. This has to be really good because, and the trick is, it has to be really good in only 500 words. Okay? Which you will find is difficult to do. Why does this have to be good? Because you may get moderated by IB. We don't record these presentations. We send in, the only thing we send is our score and this form. So if they look at this form and I give you a 10 and they don't see that in the form, then they will moderate you. Okay? Meaning they will adjust your score lower. And then we have to go back and forth and try to fight with them. What?
That sucks.
That is how it is. Okay?
You fill that or we fill that out?
You fill that out. Okay, so let me show you really quick the sections on it. Okay? You have to have a title of your presentation. Okay? It has to be a good title, like when you're titling your essays. Then you describe your real life situation. All right? A quick explanation of your real life situation. Then your knowledge question. Okay? Now, explain your real life situation and the connection it has to the knowledge question. Something like a paragraph here. Okay? So these first three parts match up to this half of the TOK diagram. All right? You shouldn't use a lot of words here. Okay? Again, think of it in a percentage aspect. If I've got 10 minutes in my presentation and I've got 500 words, all right, and I want to use about 20% of my presentation to talk about these two things, all right, then I want to have somewhere along the lines of what? I'm not good with math. What would it be? 25 words? 50 words would be 10% of 500. Am I right on that, at least? So then, no, it would be about 100 words. About 100 words in these two sections, or these three sections. Then, here's the meat. Right here. The outline. Okay? And the good thing about this is that this should be the plan for your presentation. Step-by-step plan of your presentation. What are we doing? Who's doing it? When are we doing it? Okay? So the outline is basically your step-by-step plan for the presentation. Okay, so if I put about 100 words into the other section, I would put about 300 words into this outline. Okay? It can be bullet points. It even says it. Outline how you intend to develop your presentation in the context of your real-life situation. Include analysis of your main knowledge question and related knowledge questions, as well as arguments and perspectives. Again, like Cammie said, this sucks because there was no mention of other knowledge questions in the rubric, right? And there was no mention of other knowledge questions here. So, to what extent do you need to have other knowledge questions? It would be nice, but it's not necessary. It says it on this, so I would guess that I would slap one or two in there. But I don't know how much it's necessary. Responses can be presented in continuous prose or as a list of points. I would strongly suggest that you do a list of points, an outline format, not prose, like a paragraph. That's very confusing, much easier to do it this way. Show the significance of your conclusions with particular reference to your real-life situation and indicate how those conclusions might be relevant to other real-life situations. Here we are back up in this corner right here. Okay? So you say, oh, I have to complete this document. Well, this document is your presentation. It's the presentation from beginning to end. Now, have there been situations where they've been really good presentations and really bad documents? Yeah, there have been. And have they been moderated? Yeah, they have been. So just be aware of the rules. Okay? You need to do both well. Okay? All right. I'm basically done in any case. Okay? So now this is on ManageBack. Your best friend, ManageBack. When you go into TOK, it's under presentation. Okay? So you can complete it on a hard copy or typed up, and it is due the day of your presentation. You have to hand it to me. Okay? If you show up for your presentation and you don't have this document, you don't present. Okay? Because I need to be able to look this over and match it up with your presentation. But then you will go in and input it into ManageBack, where I can export it and upload it next year. About this time, actually, seniors, right, are getting ready to upload their World Lit, their EE, and their TOK essay and presentation. So a year from now, you'll be doing this. Okay? All right. So that's it for the lesson. Other questions? Thank you very much. That's a light blue. This is more of a dark blue.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, I don't.
You did a pretty good job, though.
Where are my hands?
Not that way.
My legs?
It's just the spirit of right, you know.
Okay.
It's just embodied.
So no questions. I covered that so exhaustively. That does leave an important point, okay? This is still a presentation. So it still requires all the stuff that a normal presentation requires, okay? Which is that you dress appropriately, not like a dog attacked you on the way into school. If a dog does attack you, then your partners should have been with you to be attacked as well, and then you have consistency and blood on everyone. So you should coordinate the way you dress.
I got it.
Okay? You don't have to wear a suit and tie or anything like that, but you should look like a group. You need to be well prepared. This is what's going to throw you off of getting to all your things in the presentation, is if, for example, your presentation is not properly saved or has errors in it, has typos in it, because you'll be in the middle of your presentation and you'll look over and you'll be like, oh, and it'll throw you off. Okay, so you need to be prepared. You need to know, if you're doing PowerPoint, I've got a clicker. You can click through slides. It's very effective. You can hand it off. That way, you're not like, change slide, wait, go back, wait, two back. Okay, next one. It's very awkward and it throws everyone off. Okay? You cannot block the screen. You cannot block each other. You should be able to be seen by everyone in the room, especially these areas here, because these are the most commonly blocked off areas. You should introduce yourself at the beginning of the presentation. You should have a title slide with all your names and all the names of the name of the presentation. And then at the end of the presentation, you need to do the thank you, any questions, thank you routine, which if you don't know that, it's pretty simple. When you finish your presentation, you say thank you. It is an automatic thing. Everybody claps. Are there any questions? Now, the questions are not part of your time. Once you say thank you, your presentation is over. Now, questions are part of the TOK class, and it would be nice to answer some questions. Some days we'll have more, some days we'll have less, okay? Depending on how many people are presenting in a day. We will not do more than 2 presentations per day, unless we have, for example, 3 one-person presentations. But otherwise, it'll be 2 presentations per day, because they need time to set up, and then I need time to debrief them afterwards and tell them what they got. I'll tell you what you got right off the bat, okay? Once you finish questions, you say thank you again, everybody claps, and then you're done. Okay? Yes, Ken?
I mean, this shouldn't happen, but in the occasion that, like, you don't fill up the time that you need to fill up, would you be able to ask questions and make them part of your presentation, or no? It's still been happening.
You don't have to fill up time. You have a max, not a minimum. Okay? You can't go over 10 minutes. You could go as short as you want. If you can do all of this in 3 minutes, that's impressive. Why do I have Hitler pants? Well, look at the pants. I mean, they're...
But he made you extra thick.
That's like your Tinder profile picture, right? All right,
Break it up.
Oh my god.
Presentations should be anywhere from 8 to 10 minutes per person. If you're less than 8 minutes, you didn't do what you were supposed to do, because it's not possible to do all of this in under 8 minutes. Okay? You were not thorough. You did not elaborate. You do not know what you're talking about. Okay? You were not prepared. Okay? So the sweet spot is somewhere between 8 and 9 minutes. You don't want to be up against the clock at 10 minutes and you're rushing to finish. So I would block out my time. Okay? You will have a timer. Okay? But you might want to have individual timers as well to keep track of everything.